Yeah, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In this lesson, we will talk about Asma as-Siffah. Siffah or Sift also basically refers to adjectives, as we've discussed before at the start of this course, that the Arabic word ism, and plural of ism is asma, is not exactly a noun. So in English, a noun is limited. So in English, a noun is the name, is name of a place or animal or thing or concept. But as you've seen in Arabic, asma, a lot more falls under the ism category. So for example, even adjectives are in the ism category. But then we have many different types of ism, and we've been talking about this. We have ismul fa'il, ismul maf'ul, ismul zarf, and today our focus is on ismul sifa, which is basically, in English we would translate this as adjectives, and in Arabic it falls under the ism category. But the types of isms that are used to describe a mawsuf is that which is being described. So the words used here are called ismul sifa. And then in subsequent classes we'll talk about ismul tafzil and ismul ala. All right. When we talk about in general ism, there are multiple ways of categorizing ism, and one of those ways is shown over here. So isme zat, this is what traditionally in English we would call a noun. So when we talk about a noun in English, we say, okay, it's a,
We
uh, when we talk about a noun in English, it is the name of an animal or place or thing or concept. So for example, insanun, farasun, which means horse, hijrun, which means stone. So these are very simple nouns, and these are nouns that would be used as mawsuf. Mawsuf is something that is described. So for example, farasun jamilun. So farasun, the horse, would be the mawsuf, and jamilun, beautiful, is the sift that's describing farasun. So ismul zat would be the mawsuf, something that's being described. So hijrun also is ismul zat, it's a name of a thing. Now ismul zat can also be used to describe a concept. So bravery, for example, is a concept, and the term for bravery is shuja'atun. So the name of this concept called bravery in Arabic is shuja'atun. But when you have a concept, we can also create an adjective out of that concept. So shuja'atun is a concept, it's the concept of bravery. But then we also have an adjective. So if we want to say ar-rajulu and we want to describe him as brave, then the corresponding adjective, or in Arabic we'd say ismul sifa or ismul sift, or in Urdu we can say isme sift, that would be shuja'un. So shuja'un is an adjective, isme sift or ismul sifa, and so if I want to describe a man as being brave, I'll say rajulun shuja'un. So a brave man. If I want to say the brave man, I will say ar-rajulu ash-shuja'u. If I want to say the man is brave, I will say ar-rajulu shuja'un. So this is something we've discussed at the start of this course, and I will give some more examples shortly. All right. Now I want to make another point. When we talk about ismul fa'il, we said that it has a particular pattern. So for salati mujarrad, the pattern was fa'il. For mazid fi, the pattern was meme with a dhamma replacing the initial present tense indicator. And then on the ain letter, we would put a kasra. Then for maf'ul, similarly, there was a pattern. For ismul zarf, there were a few particular patterns. But with ismul siffah, there are many different patterns. So it's not one or two. In fact, over here, I'm showing you 9 patterns. Some are more common than others. So it's hard to memorize all these patterns, but at the very least, you can recognize that there are multiple patterns. And then a couple of these patterns are very important. So we are going to focus on those. But I'll just say this once for you so that you start getting a sense that there are multiple patterns. So fa'lun is one pattern. So sahlun, easy. Ghazbun means angry. So the next pattern is fi'lun, not used very often, but milhun means saltish. Next pattern is fu'lun. So for example, hulwun means sweet, murrun means bitter. Then fa'alun, fa'ilun, fi'alun, this comes quite often. Fa'ilun, this is a commonly used pattern. Fa'alanun, this means, this is like emphasizing. So kaslanun means very lazy, ghazbanun means very angry, fu'alun, so this is another pattern. So point being that ismul sifa can be found in many different patterns. All right. Now I'm going to say a few things that will connect our discussion, this present discussion, with material that we've studied at the start of this course. And it will also connect with different types of ism. So if you look at this sentence, az-zalimu qabihun. So az-zalimu, what sort of an ism is this? Can somebody tell me? So what sort of an ism is it, and what's the translation of this sentence? Az-zalimu qabihun. So Dr. Ghani, why don't you tell us?
Qabihun means, I'm not sure what
Qabih means ugly. It's a ismul sift. So qabih is ugly.
Ugly. Okay. The answer is ugly.
The zalim, the unjust man or the unjust person is ugly.
Yeah.
So notice what's, and then what about the next one? So Dr. Shafiq, can you do this next translation? Al-mazlumu jamilun.
Jamilun is
like Anta jamilun, you are beautiful.
Person is beautiful.
Yeah, al-mazlum, the victim. So the victim is beautiful. So multiple things are being demonstrated here. So notice in these two sentences, so in this sentence, az-zalim is ismul fa'il. That is also showing up as the mubtada or the subject. Okay. And then qabih, this is an adjective. So this is ismul sifa. So this is ismul sifa. This is
You're breaking up a little bit.
Okay, I am breaking up. Okay, let me just give me a minute. I'll just see if I can change my internet connection. Can you hear me better now, or?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, you would just break for like a mini second or something.
Okay, all right. So I'll keep going. If it becomes a big problem, let me know then. Okay, so az-zalimu qabiyun, this means that, so notice az-zalimu is the mubtada or it's a subject, qabihun is the object or the khabar actually. This is the khabar. Do you remember this? To make a very simple sentence, noun-based sentence, if the mubtada needs to be in a proper noun format,
definite form,
a marfa, and the khabar is in nakra, so that's what's happening here. Here, the khabar or the subject is actually ismul maf'ul, but it's al-mazlumu, the victim is beautiful. Okay, Next example, ar-rajulu zalimun. So what does this mean? The man, so this is just a regular ismu zat, right? Just a regular man, the man. Zalimun, zalimun here is the sift. So here a zalimu was used as ismul fa'il, but here zalimun, so it is still an ismul fa'il, but here it is the khabar. Right, so ar-rajulu zalimun means the man is unjust. And here we have again ar-rajulu ismu zat, mazlumun. Here the ismul maf'ul is used as the khabar. So this means that the man is a victim. And then over here, can somebody remind us? So can you remind us, Shahrukh, Rajulu Zalimun, is this a sentence or not?
No, this was just, if you say Rajulun Zalimun, you're saying
What does it mean?
the cruel man.
A cruel man?
Sorry,
Or-
actually a cruel man.
Yeah,
if it's
a cruel-
Ar-Rajulul Azmun, then it's the cruel
Exactly.
man.
And
If it
does anybody
is just-
remember, you're right. So a cruel man or an unjust man, what is this called? Murakkab something.
Yeah,
Rafi.
Murakkab?
no, not Izafi.
It's not Izafi, it's
Izafi.
Murakkab. No, Tawsifi.
Yes. Tawsifi, yes.
Do you remember? So Tawsifi, same root as siffah, right? So it has an illat in it, it has a ya, which makes it tricky. But Tawsifi basically comes from sift or property or adjective. So this is a murakkab Tawsifi. This is the mawsuf. Rajulun is the mawsuf. And the sift or the adjective or the descriptor is zalimun. So rajulun mazlumun, this means a sort of a victimized man. So in this context, when you see this rajulu mazlumun, this again is a murakkab tawsifi, and you can tell that from rajulun mazlumun, both are in nakra form. So therefore this is a murakkab tawsifi, they match. So this means a victimized man. All right. It also says murakkab tawsifi over here. Okay, so we are just covering different types of ism, and we are connecting this with material we studied at the start of the course. Okay, now something very interesting. I mentioned that one of the patterns is fa'ilun. So for example, rafa'a means to raise. Rafi'un is one who raises. Khasama means to argue.
So
Khasimun means one who argues. Sari'un is one who is very quick. So all these are not just nouns that are describing something. Harisun means one who is very envious. Rahimun means one who has a lot of raham or one who has raham. Jarihun means someone who is injured. And does anybody know what rajimun means?
to stone.
Yeah, rajam. When you go for Hajj and you do rajam, what does that mean?
Stone.
Yeah, rajam means to, like,
One-
basically this is the name of that action of throwing stones, and rajim means one.
Stone.
Stone.
Yeah, rajim
one-
means one who is stoned. All right. So
No.
the point I want to make on this slide is that with this pattern fa'ilun, mostly it is used in an ismul fa'il. Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, we can do now.
Okay, I changed my internet connection, hopefully. All right. Can you see my screen?
Yes,
Yes.
you can.
All right.
Yeah.
So the point I was making here is that ismul siffah which take on this fa'ilun form. Mostly this is used in the ismul fa'il sense, because if you see rafiun, someone who raises, khasimun, someone who argues, sariun, someone who is fast, harisun, someone who is envious, rahimun, someone who does raham. So all these are ismul fa'il, the doer of that action. A few words which take this pattern fa'ilun are used in the ismul maf'ul sense. So jari'un means one who is injured. Rajimun means one who is stoned, and that's why we say shaitan rajim. So the shaitan is the one who is stoned. So that's where rajim is coming from. So this is ismul maf'ul. So then a question might come up: what is the difference between fa'il and fa'il? Because if our root word is mim, rahama, the verb is, to be merciful. So the standard ismul fa'il out of rahama would be rahimun. But if we use the fa'il pattern, then we come up with rahim. And I'm saying that they both have an ismul fa'il, or the doer of the action. The difference is that with a regular fa'ilun, so first of all, the similarity is that they are both nouns. They both represent the doing of an action. But the difference is that our regular fa'ilun has a temporary connotation. So when we say rahimun, this means that somebody might not have been merciful before, but then he or she, or this is masculine, so then he became merciful, and then he will not necessarily always be merciful. But when we have the pattern fa'ilun, this has the meaning of permanence. That when we describe Allah as Rahim, this means that he was always merciful and will always remain merciful. So it gives the meaning of constancy and permanence. Similarly, Sami'un means somebody who can hear. So we might describe ourselves, so as Sami'un, meaning that when we were, so at some point we couldn't hear very well, and then we can hear, and then when we get old, we can't hear. So Sami'un means, okay, this faculty of hearing did not always exist, and it will also not always exist in the future. But when we describe Allah, Sami'un means someone who could always hear and will always hear in the future. So again, with fa'ilun, there is the concept of permanence. Alimun means somebody who knows. Alimun again implies constancy. Hafizun, somebody who protects, but not necessarily with permanence. Hafizun implies permanence. So I hope this makes sense. And now when you read the Quran and you notice Allah being described, if like even in Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. So Rahman is a mubalagha that we'll see in a later lesson, but Rahim means constantly merciful or permanently, perpetually merciful, whereas Rahim does not have the sense of permanence in it. All right, so that's an important distinction between a regular fa'il versus fa'ilun. Okay, another pattern is fa'ilun. This is generally used for states that keep recurring. So what does that mean? Farihun, happiness. So happiness is not something that we have all the time. Sometimes we are happy, sometimes we are not so happy. So farihun, something that happens from time to time. So those sorts of, if you want to describe that feeling or that state, then we generally use the pattern fa'ilun. Or tiredness. We are not always tired. We are sometimes tired and sometimes we are not tired. So ta'ibun. All right, so that's the fa'ilun pattern. Okay, here are some words, and then we are going to go into the Quranic ayat. So Bashara, bashran, this means skin. Bashira, so bashara yabshuru, with bab nasara it means skin. Bashira with bab bab sama'a yasmi'u or sami'a yasma'u. Actually, this is bab sami'a yasmi'u. So bashira yabshiru. This means to be happy.
Samya is yasma'u, right? Samya is yasma'u. So I think this is
Bab Samia.
Samia Yasma'u.
Oh, Samia Yasma'u.
Yeah.
All right. Samia Yasma'u. So that would be to be happy. In Babe Taf'il, do you know what? Can somebody tell me what Bashira and Babe Taf'il would be?
Bashara.
Very good. So Bashara. So what does Bashara mean?
to make someone happy.
Yeah, to make somebody happy or to actually give good news. So what's a mubashir?
One who's a bearer of good news.
Exactly, the bearer of good news. So mubashir is the ismul fa'il from bashara. All right. So to give good news. Khada'a means to deceive. Nazara means to be alert. So Nazir would mean one who warns and makes you alert. All right. From Nazara, what would Bab Ifal be?
Babe if'al.
Anzara.
Anzara. So Anzara. So Anzara means to warn someone. Za'ufa means to be weak. Bab karuma za'ufa. Yad'ufu means to be weak. Za'afa means to increase. So there are subtle differences here. Za'afa means to increase or to double. And in Babe Istif'al, it means to consider someone weak. Khabara means to inform somebody about what is right. Hafiza means to protect. It also means to remember. Asifa means to be sad. So asafan is the masdar. This means sadness. All right, now let's go over these, and I want you to identify the different types of isms that we see over here. All right, so let's, so Aziz Saab, can you translate the first one? وَهُوَ بِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ عَلِيمٍ.
And he is all knowing.
Yeah, be with kulli shay'in, over everything, with everything, alimun. So what's alim? What sort of a noun is this?
The fa'ilun, meaning
Exactly.
it's
So what does that mean? So what?
Constantly, perpetually knowledgeable,
Exactly.
always knowledgeable.
Always knowledgeable. Very good. So that's this is the fa'ilun pattern. Okay. Inni, indeed I, ja'ilun fil ardi khalifatan. So what sort of a noun is this ja'ilun? Is this a noun or a verb, first of all?
It's a verb.
Noun.
It's a noun because it's on at the end.
Yeah.
So
And what sort of a
can-
noun is it?
a fa'ilun, sort of.
Yeah, exactly. The one who
fa'ilun.
makes. So indeed, Allah is saying, indeed, I am the one who makes fi in al-ard khalifatan, sort of a representative or viceroy. Wa alamu. So what sort? Is this a noun or a verb? Wa alamu.
Command.
It's a verb.
It's a command. It's a verb and it's a command. And
Yeah.
know, anna, that Allah, because of anna, Allah is in nasab. Ghaniyun, self-sufficient, and Hamidun. What does Hamidun mean? And what sort of wazan, what sort of pattern is this?
The fa'il. So he's
Fa'il.
most praiseworthy, always praiseworthy.
Yeah, it's not so always, like perpetually praiseworthy.
Perpetually praiseworthy.
So right, so that's what Hamidun means. There are obviously other words like Hamid also means praiseworthy, but Hamid gives a meaning of perpetualness, constancy.
It's being used as a maf'ul.
It is being Inna Allah Ghaniyun. Indeed, Allah is. It's being used as the khabar actually. Right. Maf'ul is the term maf'ul is used in a verbal sentence. So Inna Allah, if we were just, this is a sentence itself, right? Inna Allah, indeed Allah is Ghaniyun Hamidun. So this is just a simple noun-based sentence. So Allah is the, Inna Allah is sort of the mubtada or the subject. Ghaniyun Hamidun, this is the khabar. Innal munafiqina, indeed the munafiqeen, yukhadi'un Allah, they deceive Allah. Wa huwa he khadi'u. So khadi'u is one who deceives. So on the pattern of fa'ilu. So Allah is the one who deceives them. Inna Allah, indeed Allah, khabirum means, what does khabirum mean?
Always knowledgeable.
Yeah.
In
Bima
the
with what?
What you
Ta'amalun.
do,
Exactly.
that you are doing.
with what you do, with what you do.
What you are
or
doing, right? Or what you
you're
do.
doing.
And what you will do also. This is fail mudare, which gives the meaning of, you know, present and future. So again, as you study the Quran in more detail, you realize that there is purpose behind every single word that is used. So, like in a very limited sense, from what we've learned, Allah is telling us that Allah's knowing of what we do is not like sometimes Allah knows and sometimes He doesn't know. Khabirun has permanence. So everything that we do, always, you know, whatever happens from, you know, from whenever the world started till whenever the world ends, Allah knows. Wama ana alaykum bi wakil, and I am not over you wakil. So wakil is a protector or a guardian. So this again is from the fa'il pattern. Innakum, indeed all of you, mab'uthuna. So you will be raised. Min ba'dil mauti, so after death. Innahu, indeed he, la farihun. So what does farihun mean?
Be
To be
happy.
happy.
Happy. So indeed he is happy. And fakhurun. Fakhurun is also an adjective. It means boastful. Like in Urdu we say fakhar karne wala. So indeed he is happy and boastful. Raja'a, so returned Musa. So Musa returned ila qawmihi ghazbana. Ghazbana is like even
Angry.
in Urdu, very angry. So ghazab is an Urdu word also which means anger. Ghazban is describing whom? Like in a state
Musa
of great
alayhi
anger, it's
salam.
describing Musa. And Asifan, this is his state. What is this?
Sorrowful or
Sorrowful, sad.
to be sad.
Wa indana, and with us, kitabun, a book, hafizun,
That is always protected.
that is
perpetually
always protected, perpetually protected. Very good.